Sometimes the issues of the data aren't related so much to the values within the data, but more related to the field names itself, or the presence of unneeded fields. And the filter node's really useful at that, and it's got a bunch of tricks to dealing with awkward fields, so we're going to have a look at that. Okay, so now we're going to look at a couple of tips and tricks associated with this little node here called the filter node. The filter node is a node within the field ops tab. It's also something that you can call up, the functionality you can call up within the source nodes themselves. So you can see we've got a little filter tab here just to save you the trouble. I'm going to explicitly connect it to this data set here called awkward field names, and just zoom in so you get a better look at it. And if I look inside here, we can see what it's doing. It's reading the fields, and it's giving us the opportunity either to exclude that field or to rename it. So we can actually rename it and get rid of it and give it a different name, so that it's a legitimate name. However, that's quite difficult to do when you've got lots and lots of fields. It may not really be a good solution. We're noticing here for this first field, we've got spaces between the characters, region of country. And although that's not a problem for Modeler, it can cause problems further downstream for certain routines, and it can particularly cause problems when you're dealing with third-party applications. So it's a common convention is to replace the spaces within field names with something like, for example, an underscore. Other awkward field names are things which have non-legitimate values like percentages or asterisks, or field names perhaps that begin with a number, or field names which are really too long. So these are all common issues, and the filter node has got a couple of tricks up its sleeve that help us deal with that. If I right click on this little drop down button here, we've got filter options menu. It may be, for example, that you're reading loads and loads of data in here and you only need 10 out of 1,000 fields, so removing all fields is a good way to switch off all fields and just cherry pick the 10 you want to include. And so it allows us to toggle back and forth between remove and include all fields. Then we can rename duplicates. We don't have any duplicates here, or remove duplicates. Rename for IBM SPSS statistics is a really useful function, even though you may not be using SPSS statistics, because when I click on that, it says, okay, I'm going to replace invalid characters with a hash or an underscore. And if I click on that, you'll see that region of country now is replaced by region underscore of underscore country. It's a really useful thing to have. And here we have tenure percentage is replaced with an underscore, and 3 age is replaced with x3 age. So it's just done that. It's just made it a legitimate value, a legitimate name. It's much easier for us to deal with. Even address space parentheses 1 here has been replaced with underscores. Again, that may make things a lot easier. We can also use things like truncate field names. So we've got really long field names. We can say no, the maximum length needs to be, I don't know, 18 or something like that. And you can see that this marital status at last known address has been truncated at that point down to 18, which is a nice sort of way to deal with those sorts of things. We can anonymize the field names. Let's say we're going to send them to somebody else, and so on and so on. So this is kind of a useful little procedure that people perhaps don't know about or don't use very often, but it's a real time saver. It's a really good way to deal with awkward field names. There are other things that the filter node becomes important with. So for example here, if I'm building a model, here I'm going to build a model, I'm going to predict an outcome, and I just want to show you the number of fields that we've got here. It's a different data set, but you can see we've got 42 different fields here. The model itself may not use all these fields, and indeed 42 fields isn't very many really for a lot of data sets. You might have hundreds and hundreds of fields, and again it can be very difficult when you're working with the fields which are important to you. So if I right click here and run this C5 model, it goes and creates a little model for me, and if I look inside the model, it doesn't use all of the fields. You can see it's using a subset of fields here. This is the number of fields. If I go to generate again, which you saw earlier on, I can say filter node inputs not used, or filter node based on predictor importance, the top 10 fields or importance greater than a certain value. So if I just go generate filter node inputs not used and click OK, again a filter node is created for me, and it filters out all of the fields which it hasn't used in that model. So if I'm working on that data downstream, I maybe want to use C5 as a type of predictor selection tool for me, and working in conjunction with the filter node makes that a very useful and very compelling procedure.